It was a Friday evening, and the supermarket was more crowded than I had ever seen. People had just finished work, and almost every shopping cart was full. Parents were shopping with children, students were buying cheap dinners, and office workers looked tired after a long week. I only needed a few things: a loaf of bread, some milk, eggs, and fruit. I thought I would be home within 15 minutes. Instead, I spent almost an hour inside the store. The reason was one old man. When I finally finished shopping, I joined the shortest checkout line I could find. There were only 4 people in front of me, so I felt lucky. The first 2 customers finished quickly. The third customer paid with cash. Then, an elderly man slowly pushed his cart toward the cashier. At first, nothing seemed unusual. He wore a gray coat, old leather shoes, and a flat cap that looked several years old. His cart was almost empty. He had only a few items: a small box of chocolates, a bouquet of white flowers, a greeting card, a bottle of orange juice, and 1 small package of cookies. I expected the payment to take less than a minute. Instead, everything became unexpectedly slow. The cashier scanned each item while the old man carefully searched every pocket of his coat. He checked one pocket, then another, then the inside pocket. Finally, he opened a worn wallet that looked almost as old as he was. He counted several coins. Then he counted them again. The people waiting in line began looking at their watches. Someone behind me sighed loudly. Another customer quietly moved to another checkout line. I stayed where I was, but I also felt impatient. I had worked all day. I was hungry. I wanted to go home. The old man continued counting his money. After several minutes, he seemed confused. He looked at the coins, then at the cashier, then back at the wallet. The cashier remained calm. She counted the money together with him. Unfortunately, he still did not have enough. He searched another pocket. Nothing. Then he carefully looked through a small envelope inside his wallet. It contained several old photographs instead of money. He smiled briefly while looking at one picture before placing it back. The line behind me became longer. People were beginning to complain quietly. I understood their frustration. The supermarket had many customers waiting. One slow payment was delaying everyone. Part of me wanted someone to solve the situation quickly. Another part noticed how embarrassed the old man looked. He never raised his voice. He never blamed anyone. He simply continued trying to pay. Eventually, he placed the flowers aside. Then he removed the chocolates. Next, he looked at the greeting card. For a long moment, he held it in both hands before slowly placing it beside the flowers. He seemed to be deciding which items he could no longer afford. Watching that small moment changed something inside me. He was not choosing between expensive and unnecessary things. He was giving up something that clearly mattered to him. The cashier quietly recalculated the total. The amount was lower now. Still, he did not have enough money. He counted the coins one more time. His hands were shaking slightly. The cashier remained patient. She never rushed him. She simply waited. I looked into the old man's shopping cart again. There was almost no food. Only the juice and cookies remained. That seemed strange. Most people came to the supermarket for groceries. He appeared to be buying something completely different. Without thinking too much, I stepped forward. I quietly asked whether he needed some help. At first, he politely shook his head. He seemed uncomfortable accepting assistance from a stranger. I explained that I only wanted to pay the remaining amount. It was not very much. He looked surprised. For several seconds, he did not answer. Finally, he accepted with visible hesitation. I paid for the remaining balance. Then, before the cashier removed the flowers and chocolates from the side of the counter, I quietly asked her to include them again. The old man immediately tried to refuse. He explained that they were not necessary. I gently insisted. The flowers and chocolates stayed with his purchase. When everything was packed, he thanked me several times. His eyes looked unusually emotional. Instead of leaving immediately, he carefully placed the flowers on top of the shopping bag so they would not be damaged. I thought the story had ended there. I picked up my own groceries and walked toward the parking lot. As I loaded my bags into my car, I noticed the old man walking slowly toward a nearby bus stop. The flowers were still resting carefully in his hands. For some reason, I kept thinking about him. I wondered why someone with so little money had chosen flowers, chocolates, and a greeting card. Curiosity stayed with me. I still had plenty of time before dinner. Almost without planning it, I parked my car again and walked toward the bus stop. The old man was sitting quietly on a bench. The shopping bag rested beside him. The bus did not arrive for another 10 minutes. I sat down nearby. After a few minutes, we began talking. He explained that his wife had been in the hospital for almost 3 weeks. She was recovering from major heart surgery. Every evening after finishing his volunteer work at the local library, he visited the hospital. He never wanted to arrive empty-handed. Some days he brought flowers. Other days he brought fruit or small snacks. Today was their wedding anniversary. That was why he wanted the chocolates and greeting card. He admitted that his pension had become smaller after unexpected medical expenses. He had carefully planned how much he could spend. Unfortunately, one of the supermarket prices had recently increased without him noticing. That small difference had become a problem at the checkout. As he spoke, I began understanding the photographs inside his wallet. They were not random pictures. They were photographs of his wife from different years. One showed them at the beach when they were young. Another showed their children during elementary school. A third picture showed their 50th wedding anniversary. He carried those memories everywhere. The greeting card suddenly made much more sense. It was not simply paper. It represented another anniversary they were still able to celebrate together. The bus arrived. I helped him carry the shopping bag inside. Before sitting down, he thanked me once again. I expected to return home after that. Instead, I found myself wondering which hospital he was visiting. Something encouraged me to continue helping. I realized I still had flowers in my car from a meeting earlier that afternoon. A client had canceled unexpectedly, leaving me with a small bouquet I had planned to give away. I drove to the hospital. At the reception desk, I explained that I wanted to leave flowers for the wife of an elderly visitor. The receptionist immediately recognized the couple. She smiled warmly. Apparently, the old man had visited almost every day for weeks. Everyone working on that hospital floor knew him. They also knew he never missed an anniversary, birthday, or important family date. The receptionist accepted my flowers and promised they would reach the room later that evening. As I prepared to leave, I accidentally saw the old man walking slowly through the hallway. He carried the supermarket flowers in one hand and the greeting card in the other. His wife smiled the moment she saw him. From where I stood, I could not hear their conversation. I did not need to. The expressions on their faces explained everything. The flowers mattered. The chocolates mattered. The greeting card mattered. Not because of their price, but because of the love behind them. Driving home that night, I kept thinking about the checkout line. Only 30 minutes earlier, I had felt impatient because someone seemed to be taking too long. I had looked only at the delay. I had not seen the story. The truth was that everyone standing in that supermarket carried a story I could not see. The young mother behind me looked tired because she had probably worked all day before shopping. The cashier remained patient because she understood older customers needed more time. The old man counted every coin because every dollar mattered. I realized how quickly we judge people when we know almost nothing about them. Several weeks later, I returned to the same supermarket. Once again, I found myself waiting in line. This time, another elderly customer searched slowly through a wallet. People behind me became restless. Instead of feeling impatient, I remembered the anniversary flowers. I simply waited. Being patient suddenly felt much easier. A month later, I visited my grandmother. She asked me to help organize old family photographs. While looking through several albums, I realized how many ordinary moments eventually become precious memories. A simple birthday. A picnic. A walk in the park. A small gift. Those moments looked ordinary while they happened. Years later, they became priceless. The old man understood that better than anyone. His wife probably would not remember how expensive the chocolates were. She would remember that he came. She would remember the flowers. She would remember that he never forgot their anniversary. Several months after our first meeting, I unexpectedly saw him again. This time, he was walking slowly through a public garden beside the hospital. His wife walked beside him. She looked much healthier. The flowers had been replaced by sunshine, but they still walked close together. He recognized me immediately. He introduced me to his wife through a warm smile and grateful gestures. She thanked me for helping him at the supermarket. Only then did I learn one final detail. The greeting card from that evening was now framed beside her hospital bed at home. She had kept it because she knew how much effort her husband had made to buy it. The card itself was inexpensive. Its value came from the story behind it. I drove home feeling unexpectedly emotional. That evening had changed the way I looked at strangers. Whenever someone takes too long at a checkout line now, I try to remember that I do not know what happened before they entered the store. Maybe they forgot their glasses. Maybe they are learning how to use a new bank card. Maybe they are buying medicine. Maybe they are choosing the perfect gift for someone they love. Maybe they simply need some help. Waiting an extra few minutes rarely changes my day. Showing patience might completely change someone else's. Life becomes easier when we stop measuring people only by the inconvenience they create for us. Understanding someone usually begins with slowing down long enough to notice what we cannot immediately see. That Friday evening, I thought I was only waiting in line behind an old man who took too long to pay. In reality, I was standing behind a husband who was carefully buying an anniversary gift for the woman he had loved for more than 50 years. The delay lasted only a few minutes. The lesson has stayed with me ever since. Now, whenever I stand in a long checkout line, I remind myself that every person ahead of me is carrying a story. Most of those stories will remain unknown. But sometimes, if we choose patience over frustration, we are lucky enough to understand someone. And that understanding can change the way we see people for the rest of our lives.